If Nan did not have DID, then everything they did to me was an act. Almost like a psychological experiment. Pretending to be different people just to see how I deal with it. You know how different communities online, whatever it is, they all have that one very controversial person? Well, this was what Nan was to the DID community. If you've never heard of them, they were the most controversial DID creator at their height around 2018, 2019. If you don't know what DID is, it's basically when someone has multiple distinct identity states that were formed from trauma. And for a while there, people were actually trusting them. They were watching their videos to be educated about DID. They were also shipping and crushing on different alters. It was kind of like a whole fandom situation there. However, I digress. They would make different alter introduction videos talking all about their DID system, and also, right, they did make videos of alters, how they sneeze on camera differently.
Hey, it's Nan. Hi, this is Jeremy.
Hey, it's Lacey.
This guy is Geralt. Show a picture I've drawn of myself. This will.
Which is, yeah. I mean, they were also dating Dissociated, who's basically the biggest DID creator on YouTube of all time at 1 million subscribers.
Yay! Yeah! I love you. I love you.
Hi.
It's Nin and Jeremy today. Hi everybody, it's Nin.
Sup, it's Ribbon.
And their alters were like dating each other. And it turned into a whole like fandom thing. I think you just had to be there.
Do you want me to bite you?
Bite me?
Yeah, like your neck here.
Yeah.
Is that grounding?
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it came off as like a little weird. Not in like a call the police way. I'd say more like, why did you feel the need to post alters sneezing? But the intuition of some people turned out to be right, because outside of YouTube, they're also an artist. And somehow people found out that they had been making explicit artwork tied to certain themes, including sneezing, which, okay. It also came out that they were drawing coal miners sneezing, which on its own is already just like, okay, no, so what? But it's even more icky when you find out that they had a very special interest, if you catch my drift, with illness and sneezing. Suddenly those drawings and also those sneezing videos, they were starting to make a lot more sense. And it's also disturbing because like when you realize it in hindsight, people were watching that thinking that it was just normal content when it wasn't. Like, that's a violation. After that, they pretty much went offline and just faded into obscurity. And for a while, that was it. Like, people moved on, they stopped talking about it. Years later, it turned into one of those weird YouTube stories that you vaguely remember, but like you don't dare go back and watch until somebody posted this on Reddit. Nan Ard me. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. Turn on that bell. I'm not gonna beg you publicly, but just a little bit of context before we begin. People hypothesized before all of this that Nan had been faking their DID. It was just far too convenient. They'd also use it to dodge accountability, but there was really no proof, just beyond speculation. So if you're unaware, when you have DID, you can't exactly dodge responsibility just by saying like, oh, but my alter did it. It's just like, okay, hey, I sincerely don't appreciate you shoplifting from this Walmart that I work at. Okay, but listen, like, I've got DID, and it was Riven who shoplifted, it wasn't me. Yeah, he just does that. I mean, you're just gonna have to get over it, unfortunately. No, people with DID often talk about something called system responsibility, which basically means that no matter which alternative state of the mind is involved, the body as a whole is still responsible. Another red flag people pointed to in terms of faking was when they dated Dissociated in like 2018 through 2020, and all of their alters were kind of like dating each other. You know, like Alter 1 is dating Alter 1. Nadia was dating Lacey. Kyle was dating insert alter. I don't know all of their names. And Nin was dating Nan.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi.
Hi. We think that Nan's gonna propose to Nin.
What do you think about that?
I think it's gonna be cute. They better do a fucking good job. I'm also.
Now you might be thinking to yourself, Michelle, that is such an interesting coincidence, and I would have to agree. But what is also a coincidence is two alters who were both dating each other, integrated with another alter on the same day. Which, if you don't know what integration is in terms of DID, it's basically when two alters will merge into one. So like, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but integration isn't most commonly something that will just happen randomly on a Tuesday. It's usually a very long process, being in therapy for months and years, working through trauma, building trust between parts, all of that. So it's like two alters are saying that they just happen to integrate on the same day. It's like, okay, I mean, that's just a little bit convenient. It's not even just Team Piñata. I mean, we have to assume innocence until proven guilty. Like, we don't know how much Dissociated knew or didn't know, but they did promote Nan's sneezing video and also just happened to sneeze on camera.
Bless me.
Bless me. Sorry.
They did this video where they all they all sneeze, and the differences physically are very, very interesting.
Like, personally, I be sneezing on camera sometimes. Do I edit it out? Absolutely. Like, why would I keep that in? But at the time, we didn't really have the full picture, and to be fair, I don't think we were mentally equipped yet. Because an ex of Nan finally felt as though they could come forward with this Reddit post, Nan R'd me. They posted this on the Dissociated subreddit because Nan is often talked about on there due to their connection to Dissociated. She starts kind of talking about how she doesn't have DID herself. She says she's speaking as an outsider and she really wants to be respectful and not get anything wrong. And she also mentions that even seeing Nan's face or hearing their voice is triggering to her. It is actually interesting because if you scroll through Charlie's replies, you can kind of see that mindset changing in real time. In the DID community, there is a lot of controversy around fake claiming. Like, a lot of people are against it because, like, how could you possibly know what's going on inside someone's head? And DID is already a misunderstood disorder, so accusing someone of faking does a lot of harm. But then there's the other side who's like, okay, but if you're watching a video of someone and the portrayal is just not how the disorder can be presented in any context, especially when it's all public and it's being, you know, framed as educational, so are we just supposed to sit back and not, like, question that at all? I will say that going on to someone's page with like 50 followers and saying like, hey, you're definitely faking, certainly I wouldn't say that's the move, but I would say that there is some nuance, which we will get into. My personal opinion is a little controversial because, like, yeah. First of all, I just want to say that I was R'd by Nan, or possibly one of Nan's alters. Years later, I was very troubled when I learned that Nan's channel was becoming popular. The positivity around Nan's channel at the time was scary to me. And I felt at that time that even if one person disbelieved me, it would feel like I was going through it all over again. This is something we see way too much, and it sucks. People get really attached and parasocial with a creator and they're like, oh no, my beloved would never do something like that. I know them. It's like, no, you don't, love. You know what they're choosing to post on the internet. So I'd like to think otherwise, but when something like this comes out, the response might be to defend them or question the person speaking up. I also, to be honest, was afraid that coming forward would cause some very real harm to Nan. And even after what happened between us, I still did not want that. I did not want Nan to hurt themselves or worse. For those reasons, I kept quiet. So this is also very sad. And it's also a reality. A lot of survivors are scared of hurting someone even when they hurt you, even when your experience deserves to be talked about. In some ways, I regret not coming forward at that time, but I also know I needed to protect myself, but I am coming forward now. I first met Nan in a group therapy program. I was suffering from, among other things, PTSD and Anna. At that time, Nan did not exhibit any signs of DID, and they were not being treated for DID. If they had DID at that time, they and everyone else was unaware of it. I knew Nan for about a year before we started dating. We were close friends. We had grown close being roommates at the residential program. The DID symptoms first began to appear after we started dating, which was about a year after the program ended. Some of their alters seem to have formed in response to certain circumstances having to do with our relationship, such as alters being named after physical surroundings of my bedroom. For example, Risk chose their name after looking around my room and seeing the board game Risk on the shelf across from my bed. Before this, Nan had referred to their self-described SH part. This was in the group therapy program that we both attended. Parts work was a part of the curriculum. They called them the cat because Nan had described it as a black cat that scratched them. This was the first time that part of themselves manifested as a distinct personality. Nan had just described it as a part, as in the parts work sense. In the context of parts work, and this will matter later, we all have parts. There's different therapies and such, but some people call it internal family systems. I will use an example. You know how you tell yourself like, okay, I'm gonna do dry January, and then your boss is like the worst, and you're just like, actually, that was a lie. So that is a part of you called the firefighter part, and it's stepping in to be like, no, we cannot feel this way right now. But that, my friends, is very different from DID, which is a literal dissociative disorder. During our relationship, multiple alters seemed to form themselves directly in front of me. I did my best to learn as I went, but I felt ill-equipped to understand what was happening to Nan. You can see here that Charlie is just like, something is off here, which is saying something because as you can see, Charlie had hardly any understanding of the disorder and they were still like, okay. If you don't have education about DID, which is most people, it is understandable to just try to make sense of things as they're happening. Also, she knew Nan for about a year and there was no noticeable DID. Okay, so this is actually believable because around 80 to 95% of people with DID present it covertly, which basically means you won't really notice this dramatic difference between alters from the outside. But what is a little weird to me is how these alters are showing up suddenly with like these fully formed personalities. Like, okay, so they just suddenly unlocked? Okay, let's be fair. Maybe they just weren't comfortable before and they are now. Multiplicity and me actually made a video about this and they talked about how different alters will mask as the host, Jess.
Huge displays of speaking in public and speaking in funny voices are often seen as the norm. But the truth is, unless alters are in a stable and safe environment, it's recorded that only 6% of cases have a fluid presentation. DID is a defense mechanism, it's a coping mechanism, and it's a hidden disorder. The fact that we would be ourselves like that in public and so obvious is just not accurate. Like, systems aren't like that. We've learned to be hidden, we've learned to be safe.
But that still doesn't really explain to me why Nan is naming different alters from different things inside Charlie's bedroom. Alters could come with names. They can pick one later, or some just don't prefer a name. So not only do these alters now have a fully formed personality, but also now they're just pulling a name from whatever they see in the room. Then Charlie talks about how towards the end of the relationship, things got really unstable. I wanted to end the relationship. I was dealing with a life-threatening physical illness at the time that could have unalived me. I really don't wish to revisit this as it was very traumatic. That's all I wish to say about the illness, which Nan was not particularly understanding or supportive of. My beloved dog of 11 years was also dying of a rapidly developing cancer. I knew my time with her was very short. To be frank, Nan did not seem to care much for what I was going through and seemed mostly focused on their own problems. Okay, so Nan was struggling at the time too, but completely centering yourself and your own issues while your partner is in literal crisis, it's neglectful. She was already overwhelmed. but now she's also managing her partner, which I can't even imagine. It's just like, okay, so it's my job to hold everything together, even though I can't even deal with my own stuff. Charlie continued, frankly, Nan found the side effects of the treatment for my illness sexy. It made my voice deep and raspy, like when you have a cold. If you're attracted to when someone has like a little cold, like go off. Okay, think about it on the spectrum as in like, let's think about chubby chasers. So your partner's healthy, they feel good about themselves, and they consent, and you're attracted to that. Like, okay. Versus those episodes of My 600 Pound Life where the partner doesn't want them to lose weight because they won't find them attractive anymore. That is exactly where it starts getting into territory that I'm not rocking with, y'all. It felt demeaning. It made me feel so alone. But deep down, I still cared about Nan. Even if I didn't want to be in a relationship anymore, they were still my friend. I was very afraid the rejection of me breaking up with them would cause them to SH or even unalive. I was afraid for them all the time, which made me kind of passive in our relationship, willing to go along with things because I was afraid of upsetting them. It is so messed up that Charlie was made to think like this. Like, I don't know if that was something that Nan was intentionally doing or if that's just how Charlie felt. But either way, that is certainly not a reason to stay in a relationship. And also, it's not your responsibility. You are not responsible for keeping someone alive. And even if there was implication of any sort that something bad might happen if you leave, that's abuse. Then Charlie goes into details about what happened, which I just don't feel like I should share that out of respect and just triggering for a lot of people, but I am gonna share how it ends. Just a heads up, this part is a lot, so if you need to skip it, I'm gonna put a timestamp on screen. Eventually, crying, I screamed at them to stop, and they froze. It seemed like they had switched, and that the person who was R-ing me was possibly someone other than Nan. In any case, Nan, or the alter, seemed to snap out of it, or possibly switched again, when I shouted, "Stop." Afterward, Nan apologized in a way that I recognized as a panic apology. Sorry, I'm sorry. The same thing I do sometimes when I freak out because I think I messed up when I didn't. It's a familiar behavior for traumatized people, I think. I was in shock. Nan begged me not to be mad at them. They asked if we were okay, if the relationship was okay. They did not ask me if I was okay. They did not ask me how I was that night, or the following morning, or any other time. They never seemed to be remotely interested in whether I was traumatized by the assault in all the weeks ahead. They were only interested in whether I was mad at them, whether I was going to leave them. So there I was. I was stunned in silence. Nan cried and begged and pleaded. I comforted them. I told them it was okay. I lied. Just imagine for a second. You have a disorder where you lose time. A lot of the times in early DID, like when you're first diagnosed or before, you won't always have like memories of when other alters are out. Sometimes it can just be pitch black. So you might not remember everything that happens. And then you find out you hurt someone that you care about. I really feel like your first thought wouldn't be like about yourself or about your relationship. It would be about them. Like, I don't even know what you could say. How about like, are you okay? What can I do for you? Also, maybe you'd have to sit with yourself and say like, maybe am I in a place where I cannot be in a healthy relationship right now? To do something like that and have them comforting you, that's just disturbing. After we had both calmed down, I asked Nan to sleep in the other room while I took time to think about what happened. In the morning, Nan and I went out to eat. When we got to the restaurant, Nan gave me a more sincere and heartfelt apology, but it didn't change my feelings. I wanted out. I mean, that timing is really weird. It's like They only really apologize when they're afraid that Charlie will leave. Honestly, I was still afraid for Nan's safety, so I didn't break up with them right away. Because I wanted them to be safe when I broke up with them. I was so afraid they would unalive. During this time of having to pretend everything was okay, the alter that Nan claimed was responsible for the R, Ace, fronted and apologized to me, saying, "No hard feelings, huh?" I felt like I was in an incredibly grim comedy sketch. No hard feelings? I felt like I was losing my mind. Pretending to stay in a relationship for weeks. To me, that sounds a lot like survival mode. The no hard feeling parts from the alter. Ace. What is the word that one would use for this? Like, disturbing isn't enough. So why is Charlie being put in a place to downplay it? Something unbelievably serious happened. Why are we treating it like, I mean, this is just an awkward misunderstanding. Oh yeah, so later we're going to be talking about the idea of Nan faking DID. Because if this isn't DID, that means that it wasn't just like a separate person apologizing. It's them, it's Nan using the alter to distance themselves from what happened. The absolute mindfuckery of having to go through this in the first place. And then having to deal with these alters giving these dismissive and self-absorbed responses on top of all of how horrible the act in itself is, you find out that this might have not even been real. Charlie continues, but I continued with the plan. I felt I couldn't deal with the guilt of causing something bad to happen to Nan on top of everything else. Enduring emotional abuse and now are at the expense of keeping them stable. So I got Nan into the program and I broke up with them. I was still in denial that what had happened to me was R at the time, so I hung out with Nan a few more times over the next year or so. But eventually I just felt anxiety whenever they'd contact me. So there is a question of whether Nan was truly responsible, we'll get to this later, for the R, or whether the alter was. However, I want to talk about Nan's culpability in the scenario where it was someone else. I'm going to pose a hypothetical. Let's say you were to leave your girlfriend in a room alone with a friend, and that friend R'd your girlfriend while you were gone. And if you never, at any point, ask about your girlfriend's well-being, only making sure she is not mad at you, I think that scenario is absolutely great. And I would add on to that, would you then want that friend in a room alone with her at any time? Like, Team Piñata Nan claims to have borderline personality disorder, which they talk about in the Sanity podcast that they had with Dissociated.
I have borderline personality disorder. A lot of it is characterized by unstable interpersonal relationships, an unstable sense of self. I have a chronic feeling of emptiness. I've had a lot of self-destructive behaviors before in the past, a lot of reckless behaviors before in the past. I cannot emphasize how intense I feel my emotions. I've hurt a lot of folks, and a lot of folks with BPD have hurt me. And I view these people as sick, and I view myself as sick, and when I get symptomatic, that's what it is. It's a manifestation of symptoms. It's not a moral problem.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to go too deep into this. It is mentioned later, so I'll just provide context, but this behavior isn't part of borderline. It could explain the fear of abandonment. However, you can be afraid of abandonment and still have, I don't know, basic empathy. Having BPD does not cause you to R your partner and disregard consent. Most people with BPD are not abusive. A lot of people are self-aware, they're in therapy, they're actively trying not to hurt others. There's just so much discussion about what they have, what disorders, DID, BPD. At the end of the day, it's not about what you have, right? It's about what you did. If someone struggles with emotional instability or abandonment, there's still a line for sure. So R-ing someone, brushing it off, and then the entire focus is on making sure they don't leave you. That's not a BPD thing. That is your behavior. Charlie continues, and if you, in the morning after this happens, guilt your girlfriend into staying by saying things like, I know you're going to leave me. You do not care about your girlfriend. You don't. I mean, Jesus Christ. My dog died. My best friend. I was dying. I was R'd. In that hypothetical I posed, if it were my girlfriend, I would never in a million years ask anything but, are you okay? How could she be anything but the most important thing in the world in that terrible moment? How could your concern be for anything on this planet other than her? But the morning after, something unbelievably serious happens and you're just like, oh no, but please don't leave me. It's like, huh? It's not about you right now. But it does put the other person in a position where they feel like they need to comfort you. They need to reassure you and stay and take care of your emotions. But Charlie was the one who was hurt. About a year after the breakup, Nan texted me to inform me that they had started a YouTube channel.
I fell in love with a girl, like, right before Jeremy split off. And, like, just, like, when I was beginning to become unable to ignore the DID. I put this girl through a lot, but I did love her.
I glanced at it and I noticed that they mentioned me by name in the only video I watched a bit of. At that point in time, I was too depressed to care. I did not pay it much attention. I never spoke to Nan again after that. About 2 years later, I came across someone on Twitter posting about their YouTube channel. It seemed it was now quite popular. This was very troubling for me, and as I mentioned above, I was very conflicted about what to do about it. One thing I remember vividly, however, is Nan was still talking about me. Again, I sampled one video only, and I was mentioned by name in it. It made me wonder if I was mentioned in every video. This bothered me more than I can describe. Why was Nan still talking about me? It had been 3 years. The way they described how our relationship ended in particular was infuriating. Nan described that they were just too much for me. Not that they had R'd me, not that they had abused me or neglected me. So it is so sad that this is actually like the least problematic, although is still very problematic. As a creator, it is basic courtesy to ask literally anyone if it's okay to talk about them on your channel. Not everyone's trying to wake up in the morning and find out that they're episode 3. It just makes you wonder, like, leave her alone. It makes you question whether Nan genuinely believes the reason Charlie left was because they were too much. Seeing this video was incredibly detrimental to my mental health at the time. I found this all out a little while ago, but I've just been trying to process it. I've spoken in therapy about it, I've talked with friends, family. I watched the Michelle Manna, that must be a new YouTuber, I've never heard of them, video about Nan. It's bizarre, almost like a bad dream. But when I saw her show the clip of Nan apologizing, I recognized it to be the exact insincere apology they gave me the morning after they R'd me. What Charlie is referring to here is when Team Piñata, or Nan, posted a YouTube video apologizing for their past behavior. You know, remember that the drawings and the content, everything that had come out?
Those pictures I drew were not meant to be sexy. They were a homage to the character because I appreciated the character and I thought it was cute. It was my mistake. I want to apologize from the very depths of myself. If people can't forgive me, I understand. I've drawn some fucked up shit. I don't remember drawing it.
And if you really just listen to their apology, you'll find out that it was mostly just a bunch of deflections. They were like, yeah, but like, sneezing isn't always smexual. I didn't mean it like that. I was just really confused. It's like, okay, so none of that is addressing the actual problem. But what people were upset about was the coal miner aspect and the context of that, and that they were selling actually those drawings. This was all being monetized. And instead of owning that, their entire apology was like, well, I mean, I didn't mean it. Like, I just didn't understand. So even in that apology, it's about them and not the people who were hurt. Like, on its own, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Also, though, DID, one of the most common causes of it is CSA. So I can't even imagine how triggering it is to find out a YouTuber who you've been following for years has been drawing that. I do need to say not every case of DID is from that. It's just some cases. It really did feel like it wasn't an apology. It was just like, I really don't want to get canceled. They even went on different angles of it. Like a different alter, probably, I don't know, Risk or Ace would make a video being like, well, you guys honestly you guys need to get over that. Huh, that's very familiar. I don't know where that's familiar from. And then they would also then make a separate apology when that one didn't work. So are they just copy pasting that apology anytime anything happens? Charlie continues, I feel furious. This is just a rehearsed speech they give when someone calls out something they've done wrong. And similarly, they've also claimed not to remember what they did to me, just like the drawings. I'm sorry, but I don't believe that. I don't. As for the subject of controversy around their channel, I was aware of Nan's sneezing interest. It made me uncomfortable, but I tried not to judge. I indulged it. And I drew some pictures for them when they asked me to, mostly comic book characters. I felt it was something I should do as their girlfriend, I guess. They had, after all, done the same for me about the private things I had told them when we were together. All that said, I did not know about Nan's, of children. It's hard to adequately explain this because I have for years now thought of Nan primarily as the person responsible for a complex trauma I now have to deal with for the rest of my life. So it's strange to be able to feel disappointment or betrayal or disgust at them. My respect for Nan has been non-existent for years now. I thought my standards and expectations were in the gutter already. As a survivor of CSA, which Nan knew about me, it horrifies me to know that Nan felt this way while I knew them, while I was with them, while we shared a bed. I would compare them now to someone like Dan Schneider. Maybe the coal miners watching were none the wiser, but Nan clearly liked the idea of coal miners seeing it. It's also clear to me now that they disguised a lot of their artwork from me. They showed me actual artwork they had made. As I said, we were both artists, but they only showed me adult characters. The only weird pictures they showed me was of a character that they explained represented Nan's inner child. So I understood this to be primarily an art therapy thing and not something sexual. Somebody who knew a little bit more about this whole thing also informed me that Nan had posted my artwork I had made for them on a public, very special interest forum without telling me. So while that's a very small kind of betrayal, it still shows me how little respect or regard Nan had for me. These little stunts with the sneezing videos, Nan decided to make themselves a public figure, no matter how small of one, and they used that stage to involve people unwillingly in their very special interests. That's disgusting, but it's also, to be honest, consistent with the person I knew. I hope this isn't speaking out of turn when I say that while mental illness can be a reason for certain behavior, I do think people have a responsibility to seek some kind of help when their behavior starts to hurt other people. Oh my God, I cannot even imagine. This is someone you were in a relationship with. You trusted them, only to find out later that they had this whole other side that's been hidden from you. And check this out. Nan hid the pictures that they knew was inappropriate. What does that say? They showed adult characters, so they knew exactly what they were doing. If it was all innocent and, you know, the sneezing thing isn't always in that way, it's like, then why didn't you show Charlie if it's innocent? Also, earlier in the video, Charlie was talking about how Nan would be actually interested. So the story's not lining up, Nan. And then posting their artwork on a very special interest forum. It's like, hello, hi. So where's any ounce of respect we have for literally any human? I'm sensing a pattern here. What is it? Of never respecting literally anyone's boundaries at all. Charlie said, Nan told me they had been in the mental health system since they were a kid and that they knew all the right answers. Why is that so ominous? Nan, I don't know, could have easily meant like, oh, I know the difference between saying like, I'm having unalive ideation versus plan and intent. Like one, they'll probably let you go, and the other one is like a hold. But it could also mean that Nan knows exactly what they're supposed to say. And if you look at everything else, like the apologies, the way they respond, it kind of sounds like they know exactly what accountability is supposed to sound like without actually doing it. Then Charlie goes on to explain what she believes Nan meant. I didn't quite understand what that meant at the time. I now believe that Nan learned to navigate therapy in a way that avoided the parts of themselves they did not want to change. I think that they learned to navigate therapy in a way that avoided taking responsibility for their actions. I think that they learned to use the language of therapy to hurt people. I mean, quote, trauma isn't rational, and quote, hurt people hurt people. These are useful terms in the world of mental health that Nan used to avoid accountability. They describe the way our relationship ended as them being too much for me. I doubt they've ever told a therapist what they did to me. I doubt they'd ever admitted that to anyone. I doubt they'd ever admitted that to themselves. So to piggyback off of this, most people don't see themselves as a bad person. Like, most of us aren't walking around every day thinking like, I'm the villain, man. So when someone does something genuinely awful, instead of being like, okay, this was terrible, like, what do I need? Why did I do it? How can I grow? Sometimes they change the story. I've actually seen this before with another creator I covered, Leaping Lemur, who also did something terrible. The mental gymnastics are insane. What do we have? Minimizing what happened, trying to put it on literally anyone they can see but themselves. And then at one point he's like, well, listen, other commentary YouTubers are problematic too. And his example of why that is that some commentary YouTubers, you guys are gonna love this one, are overweight. What we're not gonna do today is compare someone's body to doing that to someone. Those aren't even, I would say, in the realm of the same universe. Those aren't in the same parallel universe. Charlie basically then says that she knows Nan might see this and that makes her understandably uncomfortable. I realize that by posting this, it is possible that Nan will see it, and I have thought about that. I considered trying to disguise my identity, but anything of value I have to say is also blatantly identifying who I am. So I decided to include my name and photo to hopefully serve as proof that I really knew Nan. And to be honest, one of the reasons for that is after all these years, I am still afraid of this causing some kind of catastrophic harm to Nan's already deeply troubled life. But I have prioritized not wanting to hurt Nan over my own well-being for a decade. I have to put myself first for once. I can't keep prioritizing the feelings of someone who refused to do the same for me. This part really got me because even to this day, it's almost, what has it been, a decade? They're still afraid for Nan. She's not coming at this like, oh, I don't care if this ruins Nan. She's literally coming at it like, I don't want to hurt them. The comments were obviously very supportive. People were saying that they're proud of them. Someone said, the first thing that people with DID learn is system accountability. Alters are not separate people. What Ace did to you is what Nan did to you. The first thing this person did to you was make you feel guilty for questioning their actions because they're their own unreliable narrator. I'm so sorry this happened to you. This is interesting because Nan had a pretty good understanding of DID. Like, you could tell they'd done their research online at least. But somehow the system responsibility part was just skipped over, which is already a really bad look. Also, DID is a very super misunderstood condition to begin with. And then stuff like this happens. People literally are in court after committing an atrocious crime claiming to have DID. They've never had symptoms before, but suddenly they have DID, and well, I mean, it wasn't me, it was an alter. And to be clear, people with DID are not more likely to be violent. If anything, they're more likely to be victims than perpetrators. Charlie said, "That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. You think it was still Nan either way?" Someone replied, questioning the validity of Nan's DID at all. "Absolutely, I think Nan should as well. I have DID, and though I can't speak for everyone, I'm pretty sure most would hold themselves accountable. I'd also like to mention that the probability of an alter doing something heinous like that is extremely low, because it would completely destabilize the system. I'd bet that at the very least, Nan was aware of what was happening, at least conscious of it, and had no interest in stopping until it seemed like it was jeopardizing the relationship. I'm not a professional, but it doesn't seem to me like Nan has DID. It could be OSDD, dissociative disorder that doesn't qualify as DID, and personality disorders. It's hard to view people with separate identities as a whole person, but it's necessary for both the person and everyone else. Every situation I've been in where an alter has done something that the rest of us strongly don't agree with, like saying something stupid, maybe lashing out, I immediately dissociate. And that's not to say I spring into action immediately. I usually freeze. My body gets stiff and sweaty. I've never been so separated from the rest of myself to not try my best to take accountability for the situation in any way I can. If Nan is a DID system, not a single piece is able to form genuine empathy. That's not a dissociation thing. Their DID didn't do this to you, and you should hold them entirely accountable for what they did." The part I found interesting from this is that not a single alter is able to form empathy. Like, even what they did after, it just doesn't really line up with how you'd expect someone to respond when a part did something like that to someone they love. And the part about all alters are part of the same person, like, absolutely. DID isn't literally separate people inside of one head. It's one person with their identity split into multiple parts. Someone else chimed in. They were like, "I was diagnosed with DID 10 months ago, and they're right. One of the first things my therapist, who specializes in dissociative disorders, told me was that alters are not sprayed purple. They're all still a part of you, and that what they do is still my responsibility, even if I don't always remember. That's a part of why people don't like how Dissociated says that alters are separate people and each deserve to have their own life. It's counter to everything professionals say. System accountability is very important." Yeah, briefly to touch on that, therapy with DID specifically often talks about having communication with your parts, integration, even if it's not fully merging, just to become more connected. If you say, well, alters should live completely independently, that kind of reinforces this separation, which can make integration harder and keeps the system more fragmented. Anyways, Charlie did reply, "Agreed. I have come to believe since making this comment you replied to that Dan, in fact, does not have DID. A lot of the way that it presented does not add up. I have done a lot of research in the last few days, and I agree that acting as if alters are whole people is extremely harmful and puts out the wrong idea to people. I myself believed the alters were whole people at the time I was with Nan, and that's a big part of why I let these things slide. I thought that Nan couldn't be responsible for what Ace did or what Risk did. Now I understand that not only would that not be true if Nan had legitimate DID, but I also believe Nan was simply lying to me." Someone also pointed out, like, hey, so DID, that develops in childhood. So it showing up a year into the relationship is like, that's kind of weird. Sure, okay, masking is possible, but the timing is very interesting. I also thought it was interesting because you would have thought that maybe Nan would have said in their YouTube videos like, oh, my DID was dormant until this time. Charlie did say, okay, I mean, Nan did have this part, like not a full alter, the cat. But again, this is just like in terms of internal family systems or just parts work. And then later, suddenly this cat becomes a whole alter named Risk. Charlie said that her debate with her therapist wasn't even about whether or not Nan has DID. Because even if it was real, they could theoretically come up with an alter to excuse their behavior. My experience with Ace, you know, the one who did the terrible thing, was basically that they were the harassment alter, to put it indelicately. Ace made constant, very vulgar remarks to me, and sometimes even groped me, often in public, which is a boundary I had to set with Nan that I never wanted crossed. But Ace was unaware of that boundary, it seemed. And every time Nan switched to Ace, it was seamless. I never noticed it until I was already being ogled and fonded. And Ace would also leave just as quietly, and suddenly it was the ever-innocent Nan. However, the possibility does exist that every alter was falsified. Charlie said that she has talked about this in therapy, but like, she doesn't have DID, so she really doesn't want to speak as an authority or risk spreading any misinformation. I will admit, however, that I questioned whether Nan's DID was/is real. My sister mentioned to me that she told Nan where an ingredient in her kitchen was, and this alter then knew where that ingredient was, and she found that odd. At first I was like, oh my god, it's all coming to full circle, the sister story is confirmed. Because just to see if there's anything I wanted to recap, I went back to my old Team Piñata video, and certainly there was literally a story. It was very similar about like one alter asking, where's the vanilla extract? And then when they switched later, they knew exactly where the vanilla extract was. Anyway, it actually turns out this wasn't Charlie's story. This was another Exes story. It's just very similar. Okay, but on its own, this is not unimaginable in the realm of DID. Maybe Nan was conveniently co-conscious with another alter who knew exactly where the vanilla was. Which means basically that more than one part is aware of what's happening at the same time. But under all these circumstances, I'm still side-eyeing it. Anyways, Charlie goes on, but again, this gets a little bit into detail about the SA, so if you need to skip it, I will put a timestamp on the screen right now. I also think that many of the alters being so heavily based on things in our relationship is strange, even though those alters seem to have remained the same over the years. That would suggest that the disorder actually did develop when we were together, which, as you say, is unusual. As for responsibility, again, presuming that the R was not Nan and presuming legitimate DID, the main thing that I think Nan needed to do after the R, even aside from apologizing to me, even aside from making sure I was okay, those were the things that hurt the most, but even so, was to realize that they were obviously not healthy enough to be in a relationship with someone. If their mental health could result in blacking out and R-ing someone. I mean, what else could they have done? How could you not be so terrified of what your unhealthy mind is capable of that you immediately try to rectify it? Why was it me trying to get them into a program and not them? And that does, again, sort of lead me back to the question of whether it actually was Nan. Whether because Ace wasn't real or because the DID wasn't real. Because an innocent person who suddenly finds their body is R-ing people without their say would be horrified. But an artist isn't horrified that they R'd someone. They did it. They remember doing it. You know? This is really important because it really doesn't matter if Nan remembered it. They were told later something unbelievably serious happened and you're still are just like, I mean, I don't really have an urgency to get help. So wouldn't you want to make sure that never happens again? Like, if it happened once, it could absolutely happen again. And even that, just like, you're staying in the relationship. Not only that, you're begging them to stay. Charlie continues. Oh, one more thought. In that video I watched, Michelle Manna says that Nan described having DID since they were 5 years old, identifying Risk as being present back then. Now, obviously, Nan could have meant like the cat was around at 5 years old and then chose the name Risk later, but I did see Risk basically come into being right in front of me and then pick the name Risk from looking around my room in a daze. So Risk in the current form certainly didn't exist then. Charlie also said something about like she was questioning if if their DID was dormant and then it just showed up again in their relationship, which is actually possible, and I did not know this before researching this. Like, actually, the host can be fronting for sometimes multiple years, and no other alters really take control. Because again, it develops as a coping mechanism for severe and repeated early trauma. If life is stable, there's not always a reason for switching, so it just kind of like stays quiet. But if it was dormant, like, I'm curious, what exactly would have triggered them all to suddenly show up like at the same time? We'll also get into more sus behavior that doesn't always align with DID, but Charlie says something here that kind of changes how you look at it. Multiple people, some of whom have DID themselves, have suggested that Nan may not have DID. I think it's a very interesting possibility, but also, to be honest, a horrifying one. If Nan did not have DID, then everything they did to me was an act. Almost like a psychological experiment. Pretending to be different people just to see how I deal with it or to get away with different things. Nan would act like a small child so that I would have to care for them and babysit. As Risk, Nan acted threatening, both towards me and towards themselves, with very real violence and weapons being very much in play. As Ace, Nan violated practically every sexual boundary I set with them. I repeatedly asked them not to make comments like that in public, but as Ace, they did. I repeatedly asked them not to touch me like that in public, but as Ace, they did. Each time when I would get upset, they would be Nan once again. So I couldn't really be mad at them because it wasn't them who did it, it was Ace. Finally, it was Ace who R'd me, and Nan who immediately appeared to cry about it. This sets the entire relationship in a different light. If you guys are right and Nan does not have DID, then they did all of this to me on purpose. It was not a person going through a crisis that resulted in me getting hurt badly. It was a sick game. I agree that entertaining this possibility is beyond disturbing to think about. It's like, well, if you wanted someone to take care of you or fulfill some very sick fantasy, you would turn into a little alter. If you want fear or control, I mean, we got Risk. If a boundary gets crossed, that's Ace. And then right after, without fail, they switch back to innocent Nan. It's this weird pattern where every single behavior that benefits them has an alter for it. There were some people in the comments who theorized that Nan enjoyed creating these characters and then calling them alters. There's this video where Team Piñata, Nan, and Dissociated are dating, and these fans bought them tickets to Disneyland, so they go. And in the vlog, whenever a different alter would come out, they would post like the alter's name and their age. And 2 of the alters said that they are age sliders, which basically in DID terms means that their age can slide. Like at one point they're an adult, and in another they're in the mindset of a coal miner. And at one point they say that they've slid down to about 10 years old, and they're vlogging and they're kissing in public.
Brother, what's that?
We're bad at this when we're small.
We're really bad at this.
That whole video, if you watch the whole thing, is just, well, it's weird.
What's that, brother?
Like, they're walking around vlogging as littles, which, to be fair, is possible.
It's exciting. I'm excited. You excited? Me too. We both got small.
A little small.
That's a little.
Just a little small.
Everybody, we're friends.
We're friends, everybody.
Yeah.
Big bodies.
It's hard, but small. Big bodies, but small brains.
But so early on, after each of them got diagnosed, is like okay. I mean, I actually don't know if Nan was ever officially diagnosed. Anyone fill me in the comments. Dissociated claims to have been though. Even I'll use myself as an example. Maybe this is a bad example, but sometimes I like to make these members only vlogs, and I'll pick up the camera and I'll be like, you guys, today we're gonna have the best, the most fun day. And then like, that's the only video I took because I forgot to vlog, and like I don't have DID. So when someone's only known about their DID for a little while, it's not always that organized. Sometimes it can be, but more often than not, I should say. Like early on, there's memory gaps. You're still trying to figure out who's even in your DID system. There's not always great communication or any sometimes communication between parts. So if you're filming and a little comes out, it might not always be this like cute, smooth vlog. It's more like they could be confused or distracted or like uncomfortable. It's not always this super put together moment where we're having like these rapid switches all day and somehow all of us remembered to vlog. Some people also brought up the safety aspect of this Disneyland vlog. Like you've got two people who know very well that certain environments can trigger these little parts to come forward. And yet we're going to Disneyland? Which is like, I'm not saying if you have DID, don't go to Disneyland, right? I am saying that we have two people who are have the possibility of being in a much younger headspace. In a public place, it just feels risky. It's bringing me back to the time when I was 7 and I got lost at Six Flags. But I mean, even worse things could happen if you catch my drift. Anyways, someone else commented, I know you said you believed Nan's DID symptoms to be true. In hindsight, do you still believe it? I would watch their videos specifically when they were with their then partner Dissociated, and often it came off like they were playing around. The way they would switch often on camera and how their alters would date and crush on each other. I'm not trying to come off as insensitive, but I think questioning the validity of these diagnoses has come up, and I'm curious if you've ever felt like they were playing one big game. All alleged and for entertainment purposes, but going back and watching the videos are certainly weird in hindsight. I remember this one where they're doing Nan's makeup and like they both continue switching in this way that feels almost comical. Like it adds to the video and it just adds to this whole like shipping fandom vibe.
Shut up. Oh, he's telling me off. Sorry. I don't f***ing sound like that.
How my babes doing?
My babes.
My babes. How my babes doing?
How are my babes doing? Have we officially met yet?
No, we haven't.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
She's laughing at me. I
Oh.
think she's saying out of the way on purpose because she's like, you two need to talk.
Oh.
It's like, oh, I mean, be careful. Kyle can hear you. He's gonna come out and tell you off. DID is a serious trauma-based disorder.
Stupid. I don't know
Are
what
you
color.
calling me stupid?
No, I'm calling myself stupid.
Kitty.
I'm not calling you stupid. I'm calling myself stupid. I have to deal with my stupid shenanigans. Hi, my name is Kyle. Hey, I don't care about offending none.
Are you f***ing sure?
So good, this isn't a mess at all.
Oh, it's weird to have something touching my face while I'm switching.
Oh, sorry. You want me to
No.
give you a break?
Give me 1 second, sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Shouldn't pat your head. Hey.
You can pet my head. Hi.
I'm not saying you're not allowed to have fun when you have DID, but normally there's some kind of trigger when an alter comes forward. It depends on the person, but the trigger is normally tied to past trauma, like a certain tone of voice or like a certain situation that feels familiar or something that makes you feel unsafe. That can trigger a switch. Okay, but there is such thing as a positive trigger. Like things that feel safe or familiar might bring a part forward. For example, if you know that a certain little part really likes, what do the kids watch today? Like Coco Melon? Then if you play Coco Melon, not every single time, but it has a chance of bringing forward a little. It depends on the person though. But the way it's happening here, there isn't really any real dissociation and it kind of feels performative. Anyways, Charlie answered the question and she said this. After reading a lot about it, I've come to the conclusion that, in my opinion, Nan is putting on a performance. There are far too many things that don't add up. They held memories easily between alters, knowing something as one alter that they shouldn't have been able to know because only another alter was told that thing. They exhibited 0 dissociative symptoms before suddenly developing all of them at once, and the disorder progressed extremely fast. We were only dating for around 3.5 months. We had been friends for over a year before that, but the DID symptoms only appeared a little while into our relationship. All of the following happened within a time of between 1 and 2 months. Nan dissociated for the first time, identified 3 to 5 more alters, learned to switch on command, learned to become co-conscious and communicate between the alters, told me about each alter's backstory and where they were from and what their jobs were. I mean real world occupations, not their purpose within the system. They even merged 2 alters together. As I understand it, this is extremely unlikely to happen this quickly. It was less than 2 months from the very first dissociation to being like a fully functioning cooperative system. I also find it suspicious how each alter essentially functioned to allow Nan to act on behavior that I otherwise would not have accepted, or to force me into a situation where I had to perform a behavior that I otherwise would not be willing to do. That seems very overly convenient to me. For example, Nan wanted to touch me all the time. They were very infatuated to the point of obsession and wanted to be sexual with me constantly, even in public. Conveniently, when I set a boundary not to talk to me like that in public, and especially never to touch me like that in public, Ace emerged as an alter that doesn't understand sexual boundaries and was so aroused that they can't help themselves. So Nan and I are in public and suddenly there's Ace. And they start groping and fondling me and telling me that they want to take me into a public restroom and have their way with me. I, not having even noticed that Nan switch, object and tell them that I told them I don't want to do that sort of thing in public at all. Again, rather conveniently, now they're Nan and they don't know what I'm upset about. Like the snap of a finger, I mean. And the scene I described just happened several times nearly identically. It felt very much like they just decided to claim to be Ace to get away with behavior that I had forbid, and claim to be Nan again to not be held accountable for it. There were alters for all sorts of these things that I had been clear I was uncomfortable with. A teenage alter so they could talk about TV shows that I found upsetting and had asked not to be a topic of conversation, but it was the alter's favorite show. A literal baby alter so I would have to take care of them as though they were totally helpless. Even an alter who was completely mentally healthy so I had to pretend everything was fine with him for a while. And finally, the alter who would get away with intentionally making me afraid and threatening me with serious harm. There are so many sus things going on here. I feel like we could be here all day. Let's start with the whole switching on command thing. Because from what I understand, I'm not a professional, switching is usually triggered. It's not something you can just do like whenever you feel like it, especially early on. Like, okay, with therapy, people can get better communication and some level of control, but not like, oh, let me switch now. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's really fast. What's this in the lecture from Dr. Matthew Robinson from the McLean Hospital? What did he say about imitative DID?
With imitated DID, on the other hand, we often see profound identity alteration and switching. Switching is actually quite rare in the way that it's portrayed online. Again, the switches we see in genuine DID, when we see them, are subtle, often unnoticed by outside observers.
Charlie continues, Nan pretty much never showed any actual concern about their DID symptoms. They were never concerned about their own health, concerned for my safety. They simply didn't seem worried. Their mental health was otherwise deteriorating at the time. Their primary struggle they were being treated for when I met them was substance use. But it was weird how they simply didn't seem concerned about developing these alters. So they didn't seek any kind of therapy for these symptoms. However, they have really good communication and they got fluid switching to the point where they started a YouTube channel revolving around their DID. I don't know, like if you're comfortable sharing all of that online, Don't you think you might feel also comfortable talking to a therapist? Also, can we talk about like educating about DID when you also aren't in therapy? They were seeing get it that there are reasons why someone might not want to seek help right away. Usually though, it's more like avoidance or denial, or they just don't have access to that kind of treatment. But with Nan, it's like, there's just no urgency. There's no fear. Even though things continue escalating. Like, I'd personally be like, if my alter is capable of doing what they did, what else are they capable of? It just makes you wonder, because they were in therapy for substance use and their ED, but suddenly when it comes to DID, there's no concern. One might hypothesize, allegedly, that it's because like they know they don't have it. Can you imagine for a moment how scary it would be to see a therapist who specializes in the disorder that you're faking? That is nightmare fuel. But anyways, Charlie goes on. Oh, also, I forgot that the few times they did present with any kind of memory fragmentation, it didn't make sense. Okay, so as I mentioned before, that Ace was the one who harassed, assaulted, and even AR'd me. Ace would later claim not to remember doing any of that. Would it not be Nan who couldn't remember, but Ace who could? Isn't that how the splitting of memories work? I'm far from an expert, but I thought the reason for memory loss with DID is because the memories kind of belong to the alter that was in control at the time. So it's again very convenient that even Ace forgot the things that they did wrong, which we also saw play out years later with Nan claiming not to remember drawing those drawings of you-know-what very disturbing art. So, I mean, okay, DID is a dissociative disorder. We really can't fault someone for having an inconsistent memory. But what I can say is how perfectly convenient it is. Like here we have one alter who doesn't remember, okay? And then we have another alter who did it, who doesn't remember. So it kind of just disappears, and at some point it's just like, this is feeling a little bit self-serving to me. Actually, after this post was made, Vangelina Skov, another creator who makes commentary stuff, made a video about this topic right here. At one point, she kind of alludes to like, she wasn't really sure if Charlie had also drawn underage characters too, since Charlie in her post said that she did draw Dragon Ball characters.
I did have to Google because I know nothing about Dragon Ball. Apparently Launch and Yamcha are both in their 20s, but then I see other things saying they're like 17 or 18, so I'm a little bit confused about what age these characters are. I'm going to just go forward assuming that they're in their 20s. If these are underage characters, I'm sorry to say, like, you're not fully removed from responsibility here, but I'm gonna assume that they're 20, okay?
So Charlie actually responded to this in a third Reddit post. She basically made it very clear that the characters she drew were adults, and that she would obviously never agree to draw coal miners that way because she knew that Nan was attracted to the sneezing. She also says that Nan hid these drawings from her because Nan knew that Charlie wouldn't be okay with it. Charlie basically said that that part of the video had really crossed a line, especially since she's a private person and she wasn't contacted before the video was put out. People on Reddit were like, Charlie has been more than available. Like, Charlie would literally respond to messages soon after people asked questions. So like, why, like, this could have been easily answered for something so serious. Someone in Vangelina's comment section said, wild to make accusations toward the ex without any evidence. She's been way open to comment and to clarify things, and her most recent Reddit post really makes me feel disappointed in your lack of ethical journalism here. Someone replied to that saying, tell me you're 12 without telling me you're 12 years old. Cherry picker. The original commenter replied, you're fine with making life-ruining accusations without any evidence or talking to the person you're accusing first? That's shameful, TBH. Someone also replied, I recommend you go outside or actually listen to the whole video, where Vange is overtly on TP's ex's side, but Reddit always focuses on one moment. By the way, if you watch the whole 20 seconds, it all gets explained. Acquire your own opinions, please. My own opinion is that Vangelina obviously did walk it back really quick, but also saying like, oh, I'm unsure, but I'm just going to assume they were over 18, over something that's so serious when this could have easily just been edited out. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about how Charlie's relationship even started with Nan. Someone asked, how did your relationship with Nan start? Charlie said, like I've mentioned, we met at a mental health facility treatment. It was an ED facility. We were both artists who liked comics. We hit it off fairly quickly. We just tried to support each other with our respective recoveries. Later, Nan became my roommate in the treatment housing and we grew very close. I considered Nan to be a good friend and I really missed them when we had to leave the facility and Nan returned home to Southern California. A year later, Nan reached out telling me that they had moved and now lived fairly close to where the treatment center was. I lived in Northern California and was about an hour or so from the treatment center, so now we lived only about an hour apart instead of 6 hours apart. We started hanging out again and it was nice. At first, Nan told me they moved to the area to be near their brother. I had met Nan's brother. He was a really cool guy, really nice. I liked him. He did strike me as trying to keep something of an emotional distance from Nan. And I didn't really understand why at the time. It did start to make sense later. Nan's mental health started to deteriorate during our friendship. They started struggling a lot with SH and alcohol. I was really worried about them and they asked to hang out more often. I obliged. I knew it would help to get away from their problems and spend some time drawing together. One day, Nan and I were hanging out and I talked about how hard it was to find a date and that I missed being in a relationship. Nan started crying. I asked if they were okay. They confessed that they were in love with me. Painfully in love was how they put it. They told me that they were, this is awful, SHing and drinking because they couldn't be with me. I tried to ask why they couldn't be with me, but they just kept going on and on about how they felt like they didn't want to live without me. I was scared. I knew how bad of a mental state they were in, but I didn't really know if I felt romantically towards Nan. And I also didn't want to be in a relationship that could be unstable from the get-go. I was very cautious of codependency, as I had codependent tendencies in my last relationship. That's what I was thinking about in the moment, but meanwhile, Nan was still talking. Then they started begging me, please, please be with me. Oh no. I want to show you the love that you deserve. I want to love you like you want. Sobbing. Public place. Humiliating. Frozen. Scared. Uncertain. Nan said, I don't know what I'd do without you. I don't know what I might do to myself. Fuck. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what else to do. I didn't want Nan to hurt themselves because I rejected them, so I said, we can try it out. We could see what happens. Nan started saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I knew I had made a big mistake, but it was too late. I let myself be pressured into dating Nan because I thought they might unalive themselves. I should have made literally any other choice, but I made the wrong one. It felt like an even bigger mistake when they started talking about being in this for the long haul, literally hours later. It already felt like there was no way out. In retrospect, maybe it could have only ended with me getting them into a treatment facility. I felt terribly ashamed that I didn't set a boundary there and say no. I think it's why I was so insistent on my boundaries later in the relationship, and why Nan developed a tool to break those boundaries down with the DID performance. Anyway, it's not a good story. It was an ugly time and I wish I had stood up for myself more. I feel embarrassed even talking about this. I just can't believe I reacted to such blatant manipulation with dating them for 3 months. I should have just called 911 or something, but it felt cruel. Nah, I mean, obviously in hindsight, it's so easy to think like what you should have done in that situation. But when you're in the moment and people are making these threats, like there's a chance that you might say whatever it is you need to say to keep them safe in that moment. But there is an actual term for this, and it's called emotional coercion, which basically means in this case that the relationship didn't even start from a genuine choice. And then obviously saying stuff like, I don't know what I'd do to myself, like that is so serious. And in that moment, whether you meant it like that or not, that it feels like pressure. Because now it's not even a confession anymore. It's like, if you say no, something bad might happen. That is such an unfair situation to put someone in. One person cannot be responsible for stopping someone else from doing that to themselves. Someone else asked something innocent. They were like, hey Charlie, what were the alters you encountered in your time with Nan? What role did each one play? And what do you think Nan's goal was in malingering, allegedly? And Charlie's answer is, how can I say, wild, to put it lightly. I think given that Nan came up with these symptoms and chose to first present them when they were with me, the alter's original purposes were probably specific things to our relationship. Maybe that's conceited of me, but I think it all seemed tailored to accomplishing specific things that I wouldn't let them do or be willing to do myself. I mean, I don't think it's conceited when that's actually what was like happening. Like obviously, if someone has DID and they have a little alter, it's not really like, that's not like they want to be took for. But the way the alters are presented in this way, it does very much come off that way. But also, it wasn't even just Charlie. This went on into future relationships. To be honest, I don't remember all of them. I found it exhausting at the time, but here are the ones I remember. Jeremy, in practice, Jeremy was just some guy to me. He had a terrible Canadian accent.
I'm the co-host and primary protector. I'm Jeremy.
I think we're winding down, Nuri.
Uh-huh.
So today we are going to be talking about being primary protector. My first memories were kind of when Risk was really, really active as Nan's primary protector at the time. Nan was just in really, really, really bad shape, and I switched out. And at that time, I had no clue I was a primary protector at all. All I knew was that Risk had some dangerous stuff in our possession, and Nan didn't know where it is. And I didn't really know where it was either, but I was able to dig. I think that I realized that my role was an all-encompassing protective role during our first day in the psych hospital, which is just was a super fun situation. You can find out more about that there, because so many things were going wrong and so many things were breaking down. I kept getting triggered into the body all of the time. All of the time, whenever something needed to be done, I was triggered into the body, and I was triggered into the body to get things done. And once the next step was done, once the situation was slightly safer, then Nan was switching back out with me, and the communication back then was awful.
I think his actual purpose was to make me pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. Because his role seemed to be that he was the completely healthy alter and has no problems. I honestly think his purpose was to essentially make it so I wasn't allowed to lose my S-word. Ace, who was the sexual alter, but more like the harassment and assault alter.
Hi, it's Ace. This bullshit, I couldn't be bothered to actually spend time on a picture because fuck, I'm not able to get drunk. Not even the system knows my real age. I have neon blue spiky hair. It's like a mohawk. I have piercing green eyes. I'm very thin. This body is super I can't. Well, I usually get drunk or I'm f***ing somebody when I'm in the body. I am the sexual alter. A lot of the times, I get to have sex in the place of Nan.
They're very into drugs and alcohol. They have anorexia and like to encourage that in Nan and some of us other alters. Ace claims to be a self-hating egomaniac.
With me, Ace seemed to be Nan's urges they were ashamed of and needed to pretend they weren't their own. Like wanting to have with me in public, whether I wanted it or not. Risk, this was the SH alter who threatened me with a weapon and made me chase them through the street at night and threatened to run into oncoming traffic while they were drinking with me in the car.
Risk, very angry and destructive.
The actual purpose of this seems clear to me. Freedom to act out and make me feel afraid with impunity. There were, I think, 3 more whose names I don't recall. A teenager, a kid, a much younger kid, like a toddler.
Kit is 13 years old, and she loves color, and she's very, very bright and happy. Sadie is very scared. She doesn't stay around in the body very much when she comes out, but she loves playing with toys, and she loves color, and she loves cats. Since she is the traumatized part of our system, she is very fragile.
I think the teenager's purpose was to be able to talk my ear off about things I was clear with Nan that I didn't want to talk about as I found them upsetting topics. The toddler's purpose was to make me babysit them as though they were totally helpless, and I think Nan must have felt the other kid was a redundant character because they got merged with someone else, I forgot who. Okay, I think it's needless to say that people can't control what alters they have when they have DID. However, DID doesn't generally present in a way where alters have the ability to get away with whatever they want, even though the partner had originally told them no. It's just such a bizarre situation, like you set a boundary, an alter appears who ignores it. You're overwhelmed and want them to take accountability, while an alter fronts and, you're forced to act like everything is fine. You start pushing back, oh, well, an alter comes forward who escalates fear. This is the perfect system, no pun intended, where every situation ends with Nan getting what they wanted. If this was just symptoms, you'd more expect things to be like messy or inconsistent or confusing. But here it's just like, every single time without fail, it works in their favor. And then at the same time, it puts the other person in the absolute worst position. Someone else in the comments actually was also the ex of Nan. They actually said that Nan had accused them of R-ing them. And then they go on to state that allegedly Nan is a serial offender. So at this point, I will say that I cannot verify any of this. This is all, obviously, I'm talking about a world in Minecraft, not in real life. There's no way to prove that any of this happened because it was in Minecraft, but it's a lot. So this is their take on Nan's behavior. Nan gets off to power. They're not asexual at all. That was a lie, like most things with them. Sneezing, coal miners, diseases, cruelty, and power is what they like, and not consent. They confirmed their borderline personality disorder in an old podcast, but that's not why they do it. They do it because they can, because they want to. They see the egregious harm they cause and they're comfortable with it. It needs no deeper explanation than that. So obviously, again, none of this is verifiable. This is all just speculation. However, I can talk about borderline personality disorder. So people with BPD oftentimes have an intense fear of abandonment. Sure, they could have quick escalation, aka I'm madly in love with you, and they can attach very quickly. So going from friendship to painfully in love to begging to I'm in the long haul within literal hours is not unheard of for a lot of people with BPD, but BPD individuals do not lack empathy and a lot of the times will not put their own emotional need above a lover or anyone. Okay, we see with Nan a very intense fear of abandonment. But then of course there are sides that absolutely do not line up at all. But individuals who notice some maladaptive tendencies within themselves have a tendency to like go to therapy. So I guess in that case, you're just kind of treatment resistant. But then there are other parts that don't line up with BPD at all. Like, what's this? The pressure? the lack of consent, the way accountability just disappears and there's no sense of urgency whatsoever about the harm done to their partner. I understand why people are bringing up labels, but I would also argue that in this case, they don't matter. What I would say matters very much is a pattern that is becoming blatantly clear. Also, what would you have it, y'all? This ex also had made a post about Nan. They had said, "Everyone in my life despises Nan. They do so because they all see Nan as an abusive con artist. I, being fucked in the head from emotional abuse by this person for 18 months, have trouble seeing that. I have even talked with Nan about this, who swears up and down that they do have DID. My mom, however, has zero doubt that Nan is a malingerer. Well, I mean, how could you ever really know?" So she told me. Me and Nan were cooking when they asked me where the vanilla extract was, full circle, y'all. And I showed them. 20 minutes go by and they switched. Nan introduces themselves as another person and I ask if they need help and they say they don't. And we go back to cooking. This alter looks at the recipe that requires vanilla extract and goes right to it. It was the damnedest thing. Here's this supposed stranger in a kitchen they've never been in with a person they've never met. And they knew exactly where everything was? And that's when I knew Nan was completely full of S-word and not just borderline. And if I think back, that happened a lot. They explained it away by saying, "We have good communication in the inner world." Me and an alter would sit through a movie and someone else would come out and I'd ask them what we just watched and they'd get a message saying what it was. Or I'd be expecting to see a certain alter and they'd been getting messages from them while I waited. The communication was so good, the amnesia seemed non-existent. When I met the cat alter, they hyped him up for like 20 minutes saying that the other alters were holding him back, making me think I was gonna get into a fist fight with my partner in the car. And that was my life. Chaos. My gotcha moment came too late though. There was another moment in a video with Lacey and Nadia, who are two alters who are in the Dissociated and Team Piñata system. They were looking at each other and they both just burst out laughing. Like a genuine character breaking laugh. And that's when I knew it was a game to them, allegedly. They duped everyone and they thought it was hilarious. So like we've discussed, DID is a coping mechanism for overwhelming trauma. The whole point of it is to keep things separate, like separate experiences, separate memories, separate emotions, so that not everything, all of the trauma that they had experienced hit at once. The whole point of DID is that there's supposed to be some level of separation early on. So basically when something extremely traumatic happened, like your brain was like, no, this is too much. I cannot handle this all at once, and split. So it could turn out in a way that everyone with DID is different, but some alters hold the trauma, others hold day-to-day life. Other alters might deal with different emotions or fears, and they're not connected on purpose. Because if they all were connected when the trauma had occurred, that would have negated the reason why the disorder exists. So when everything is so smooth like that, we got instant awareness, perfect communication, no confusion or memory issues, like minus the convenient ones. I'm not gonna lie there, like my sus meter is kind of going crazy, and that on top of like no urgency about it. I also saw someone on Reddit sum it up in a way that I thought made a lot of sense. I think regardless of whether or not Nan actually has DID, which the lack of amnesia and convenient switching suggests otherwise, they knew what they were doing. It's possible that Nan believed they had DID and it led to a deeper separation of identity that allowed them to hide from their own mind. It's possible that Nan was trying to figure out what was wrong with them and DID offered a perfect explanation and excuse. I'm against fake claiming, which is calling someone a fake or pretend system, but the way Nan behaved does not seem at all like DID to me. If I had to guess, I would say Nan does have some sort of dissociative disorder, maybe OSDD, where there's either a lack of amnesia or lack of fully formed alters. But it sounds the most like borderline personality disorder. In this disorder, the black and white thinking and extreme mood swings can make it seem like you have alters. If the first time someone showed up was during parts work therapy, it's likely Nan realized that a personality separation allowed them to fully express without worrying about personal consequences. This would also explain how they seemingly snapped out of it when their fantasy was ruined. They created a victim narrative that was so encompassing in your relationship that you quite literally had no room for negative emotions without fear. That's deep-seated manipulation, whether they were conscious of it or not. I doubt Nan was doing this with the full intention of traumatizing you in this game they were playing. I do believe that they did everything to please themselves and avoid accountability while using you to fulfill whatever sick desire they could get away with. In the end, I don't think anyone will know for sure what's going on in Nan's head, because they have to believe their own lies to keep living with everything they've done. Anything to avoid accountability. Okay, obviously, like they said, we can't know what's going on inside someone's head. That's why fake claiming is so hard, because it's like, even if someone is showing symptoms that are not connected to the disorder at all, like, there are so few cases in which people admit they faked it or they're like exposed by like a parent or a friend. But there are a lot of cases in which people will convince themselves that they have DID when they actually do have like BPD, other dissociative disorders, whatever. Also, manipulation isn't always this super calculated evil plan. Sometimes people will literally do anything it takes to convince themselves that what they're doing is justified. It takes a really strong person to wake up one day and say, listen, I have been hurting people. I have been making bad decisions. What can I do to do better? Finally, someone asked Charlie a question that was very interesting. If Nan came back and read this whole post and gave a genuine apology, would you, Charlie, forgive them? Charlie said, the fact that Nan has also stated their ability to navigate therapy so well is a huge red flag. It's not speculation to say that. At the very least, they are manipulative. Manipulative people will never take accountability for the disasters they create. And Charlie replied, I don't think even a true heartfelt apology would change anything for me at this point. First of all, it's coming a decade too late. But I think even back then, while it might have mitigated some of the damage to know they care that I'd been hurt, I would still have been AR'd, and I would still not feel safe around them, and I would still have broken up with them and removed them from my life. Some other comments in the thread have also begun to convince me it's possible Nan did not have DID, which would make it even more impossible for me to forgive their behavior toward me. They violated me in nearly every way I could be violated. And if there were no distinct alters in reality, then that was all of them. And it was just a way to obscure their behavior. Even if there was DID, however, others have also pointed out that DID often prevents an alter from doing something that is truly, truly against the wishes of the other alters. Which in either case would mean that Nan was fine with R'ing me, and none of the other alters cared either. Not one of them tried to help me or cared if I was okay. If Nan is reading this, I want them to know I see them for who they are now. Nan, you broke me down until I was nothing. You violated my body, my privacy, and my dignity. You exploited my kindness, patience, and compassion, took advantage of my family, and tainted my art. You R'd my body, but you may as well have R'd my mind and soul too. You hurt me in indescribable ways, and you've probably spent the past 10 years blissfully unaware that you R'd me because you are very capable of lying to yourself. Take a good hard look at yourself. Look inward. Get help before you hurt someone else. I'll never forgive you, but you can still change for you and for others. It has to stop. Please. Here's the part that also sticks with me. Like, if this had never been posted, if this Reddit didn't exist, would anyone have known? Like, genuinely, would this have just been pushed down by stans? Or would it have just kept going? Because that's the thing with stuff like this. A lot of the time, people do come forward, and they're not believed. or they're brushed off. Whether this was DID or not, whether it was intentional or not. At a certain point, it's like, well, that's not even the most important question because the outcome is the same. I really hope everyone who was affected by this are doing okay and that you are in a safer place now. So if you made it this far, hello, are we all doing okay? Second of all, feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on the bell. And also comment below your thoughts, but be nice. I'm watching you. And comment below an emoji of your favorite animal so that I know you have made it this far. But without further ado, I love you guys, stay safe, and peace out.